Well, let's now bring in Sultan Barakat. He's a professor of public policy at Hamad Bin Khalifa University. He joins me again here in the studio. Sultan, thank you for joining me again.
Thank you.
Now, as we're seeing that the people, as well as aid workers, can a little more freely move around and they can assess the situation, they're on the ground in Gaza, we're seeing like the full extent of the destruction, what's taken place over the last nearly 2 months now. Does that change the amount of pressure on Israel?
It should, ideally. But I think also Israel will try and work its way out of this still. And we could see the beginning of this yesterday in Netanyahu's press conference with the Belgium and the Spanish prime ministers, when he tried to blame the UN for not being fast enough responding to the Palestinian needs. He's only agreed to the ceasefire, 2 days ago. He expects the international community to come and help the Palestinians as fast as possible. Yeah. Now, what I think he's trying to do is again confuse the picture overall as to the situation. We all witnessed the way he uprooted more than 1 million people. Yeah. And this is still very much in line with his bigger plan of displacing the Palestinians out of Gaza. He's made all these people extremely vulnerable by taking them off their homes, their infrastructure, where they lived before, and moved them into another side of Gaza. And they've become pretty fluid. I mean, they're people that can be moved at very short notice now. And then he threw them all into the lap of the international community and said, it's your responsibility. Now he's given them a break, ceasefire, and he expects people to come for their help. So I think the situation there is unlikely to improve very quickly as a result of these 4 days. But also adding to that, of course, people on the ground were not briefed on the details of this agreement. So they were not told that they can't go back to their homes in the Gaza city, which still sealed off as far as the Palestinians are concerned. No one can enter. And that must have caused a lot of confusion for those who want to make sure that their relatives are fine, they want to revisit their homes and so on. I think the fact that they have to do all of this, live these 4 days under the overall threat of continuing the war must be horrifying, must be terrible. Because you can't plan, you cannot do anything except maybe bury the dead that they have been engaged in.
Well, today is day 2. I mean, there's only 2 more days to go. I'm wondering what happens after the 4 days. I mean, Israel's obviously been preparing for a long war. They've been very explicit about that. In Israel at the moment, we've been hearing from our correspondents repeatedly that the military continues to have very broad public support, even though that's not necessarily shared by Netanyahu. But Netanyahu presumably knows or feels that he's pretty much out as soon as the war ends. So everyone's incentivized to keep it going.
Yes, well, I think it would be slightly more difficult for him to keep it going now that people have tasted the possibility of releasing their hostages, unharmed, particularly that they've all now been checked and they all look like they've been looked after, they've been protected. And I mean, from what we've seen from outside, clearly, the Palestinians have exerted a lot of effort to protect these people amongst this huge bombing that was going on. So I think it would be much more difficult for him to say, no, we're going to go back to war. And a lot can be maybe read in the nature of the hostages that are to be released. The waves that we saw today and yesterday, they're really based on humanitarian
all of them
basis.
Women and children.
They're all women and children. Even on the Palestinian side, the ones that were released from the Israeli prisons, none of them is really what we call high-value prisoner for Israel that is really affecting its security. They were all part of the normal pattern of harassing the Palestinians. Now, I think when we move into day 3 and 4, we'll probably see on the list more important names. And then we can also tell whether there is a real plan for the future, because depending on who Israel releases from its prison, so someone like Marwan Barghouti, if they decide that he can be included in this wave, then clearly there is a prospect for some political position in the future.
Well, let me ask you then about the releasing of more prisoners, or on one side, captives on the other. If Hamas decides to release the majority of the captives, I've been curious about how that changes the calculus for the war. Does that change the appetite in Israel for the war, the rationale for continuing the war, the public support for it? And on the other side, does Hamas then lose the leverage that they have?
I mean, it's very unlikely that Hamas now will talk about releasing the soldiers they're holding. So all the agreement now is focused on civilians by and large. But they are looking for Israel to release high-value prisoners from the prisons in Israel. Would that lead them to lose their leverage? Obviously, there is part of that. But I think now with the international consensus growing towards trying and bring this to an end, they're likely to continue.
Well, we'll see what happens in the coming days and weeks. Sultan Barakat, thank you for sharing your thoughts and joining me again.
Thank you very much.